Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. I was strapped into the left crew chief seat of our stealth-modified Black Hawk, running dark at 8,000 feet over the mountains of Gyeonggi province. No running lights, no radio chatter, just the soft thrum of rotors and the silent pressure of protocol. We were Night Stalkers, 160th SAW, and this was supposed to be another quiet Tier 1 extraction. 2 intelligence contractors and a South Korean biohazard specialist from a defunct listening post near the DMZ. In and out, no margin for delay, no fallback. Our helicopter, call sign Chalk 2, was flying overwatch for the lead bird. Chief Warrant Officer Devereaux had the stick. Calm, precise, barely said a word beyond what was necessary. The guy in the right door was new, Staff Sergeant Malik, only 6 weeks on with us. Navy transfer, steady hands, sharp eyes, good with the GAU. I ran the left door, cradling the M240 series machine gun, watching the tree lines and ridge lines for muzzle flashes, SAM signatures, or anything else that didn't belong. For the first hour, it was clean. Then, everything changed. At 0214 hours, we got a fragment of audio on UHF from Chalk 1. It started clean. Package secured, returning to... Then it cut off. Sharp noise. Static. And then a short burst we couldn't explain. It sounded human, but wrong. Not a scream, not a word. Just something breaking. Devereaux radioed command. Silence. We circled the outpost twice. IR strobes off, optics hot. The compound was quiet, too quiet. One Humvee burned just off the pad, no movement. When we dropped low for a visual recon, what we saw didn't make sense. 4 bodies, all wearing US uniforms. One of them had torn off its own vest and jacket, like it was overheating in sub-zero wind chill. Another had bite wounds up the arm, but no attacker in sight. That's when Sergeant Malik shouted, "Movement west wall!" It wasn't military, not civilians either. Figures were stumbling through the gate like they'd forgotten how their legs worked. Arms slack. One dragged a rifle on the ground but didn't raise it. We lit them up with IR and thermal. Their heat signatures were off, patchy, cooler than baseline. No response to our presence. Command finally came back on comms. Fragmented. We heard RTB immediately. Containment breach. Zulu threat confirmed. Zulu threat. Biological event protocol. That wasn't training code. That was active. We punched it back towards Seoul, low and fast. En route, we got flashes of radio traffic from US Forces Korea, Camp Humphreys, Osan Air Base. All of it bad. Reports of erratic personnel, containment loss, mobility failures in motor pool, then complete silence. We were halfway across the Han River when the city lit up behind us. Fires in the civilian sectors. One of the bridges, Seongsu, I think, collapsed into the water. We didn't stay to watch. We refueled at an alternate depot south of Pyeongtaek. Full blackout, no contact. The fuel crew never came out. Pumps were unlocked. A note was taped to the console. We left. Don't follow. We barely had enough JP-8 to make it across the ocean. Command diverted us back stateside, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the 160th's home. We rotated shifts for rest, but none of us slept. Crossing into US airspace was like flying into a memory. Nashville below looked normal at first glance. Cars on the road, grid lit up. But closer to Campbell, the world shifted again. Plumes of black smoke on the southern perimeter. Barracks parking lot full of abandoned POVs, doors open, some still running. A row of Apache longbows sat half-spun on the tarmac, rotors tangled like someone yanked the pilots out mid-pre-flight. We flared down on the secondary pad near Hangar 4. That's when we heard it up close for the first time. No comms, no ground crew. Just wind, rotor wash, and then gunshots. Inside the hangar, then screaming. Devereaux cut the power. "Weapons up," he said. "Don't unstrap." Too late. I'd already slid down and moved forward toward the hangar. Malik took the opposite flank. We split wide. At first, it looked like a drill. One body near the blast doors, full gear, MP armband, dead, not shot, torn. Another lay slumped across a forklift. Something had cracked his helmet open from behind. We moved inside. 20 meters. 30. Then from the shadows past the loading dock, movement. Not running. Walking. A soldier in PT gear, blood soaked from the chin down. No shoes. His left ankle was bent wrong, broken, but he kept coming. No sound, no pause. I raised my M4, shouted the challenge phrase. No response. I ordered him to stop. He didn't. Just kept walking like gravity didn't matter. His eyes were white, not blind, just gone. No recognition, no thought. I fired a single round. It hit center mass. No effect. Then Malik opened up. 3 in the torso. Still nothing. 4th round caught the thing high center chest. That one dropped him. The body hit the concrete like a slab of meat. We didn't process. We swept the rest of the hangar. 2 more infected. No weapons. One tried to charge Malik but couldn't coordinate the run. Slipped on the blood trail and skidded into a metal crate. He dropped it with a burst. We pulled back to the bird. Devereaux was already warming engines. Campbell's compromised. We're not staying. Once airborne, we got a partial uplink to SOCOM command. Most of the channels were down. But one feed, NavSpecWar AlertNet, was cycling location codes. We identified 2 as emergency fallback zones, Redstone Arsenal in Alabama and Wright-Patterson AFB in Ohio, both already flagged as contested. The other fallback was less clear, coordinates somewhere in Kansas. No label, just Tower Echo. We turned south toward Nashville, hoping for fuel or word from 5th Group. What we found instead was Interstate 24, jammed for miles. Vehicles wedged bumper to bumper, doors open, luggage spilled across asphalt, smoke rising in all directions, no sign of the living. The infected weren't fast. They didn't swarm like the movies. But they were everywhere. Dozens in every lot, wandering between wrecks, dragging limbs, walking without sound. I saw a mother with a baby carrier strapped to her back, empty. She was covered in blood, still walking in a tight circle like her brain had rewound the last moment. We didn't land. Downtown Nashville looked like it had been hit by airstrikes. Fires in the business district, smoke from Titan Stadium, emergency broadcasts still running on some rooftops, blue strobe lights flashing automated warnings, voices repeating FEMA advisories in 3 languages. Shelter in place, avoid infected, head north if able. We turned west, searching for open skies, fuel running low again. Only reason we didn't ditch in the woods was because Devereaux spotted a county refueling station outside Jackson. Unmanned, exposed, but working. We landed hard, no perimeter. I set up near the tail, scanning tree lines while Malik fueled. He worked fast, checking pump gauges, triple confirming the mix. Then I saw movement near the tree line. 4 figures, not close, not yet. I motioned him faster. He didn't argue. As the rotors spun back up, one of the infected, a man in a shredded sheriff's uniform, emerged from the trees. He didn't look like much, but the way he moved, the quiet precision, he was learning, watching. We got out of there seconds before the others arrived. Now we're somewhere over Arkansas. Below us, fields and broken roads. No contact, no coordination. We've picked up faint calls, some civilian, some military, all of them saying the same thing. We're surrounded. We need extraction. Is anyone left? I don't have answers. I just have a bird with half a tank and 2 belts left for the M240. Malik's passed out in the back, gear still on. Devereaux is flying silent, eyes locked on the horizon. He hasn't spoken since we cleared Nashville airspace, and I haven't pressed him. There's a rhythm you learn with long-haul flights, when to talk, when to let the silence ride. Right now, the hum of the engines is the only thing holding back the edge of collapse. Below us, the fields flatten into patchy woodland, then break into the grid of old county roads. No cars, no movement, not even the flicker of headlights. You expect a few drunk drivers at night, maybe a trucker hammering down I-40, but it's dead down there. Like the power's out across half the state, and the world just forgot to turn it back on. We bank southwest toward Little Rock, not to land, just to listen. Our encrypted channels are quiet, but the civilian bands, emergency fire, county sheriff, even a few FM talk shows are boiling with noise. Some of it's nonsense. People screaming. Some is worse, people not screaming. One call loops over and over, a recorded dispatcher message telling residents to report to War Memorial Stadium for processing. That stadium's open air, no overhead protection, surrounded by dense neighborhoods and narrow feeder roads. It would be a massacre. Either they're desperate or whoever gave that order is long dead. Devereaux finally speaks. His voice is dry like he hasn't blinked in hours. No comms from Campbell, no vector from SOCOM. How far you think we get on what we've got? I check the flight panel. Quick math in my head. We're flying light. No external pods, minimal cargo. But even then, we're pushing it. Another 150 miles, give or take, depends on elevation. He nods once, eyes never leaving the horizon. Okay, we're going to try Kessler. I blink. Kessler? Mississippi National Guard. Small pad outside Biloxi. Might have stayed quiet longer than the big boys. Not on most maps. I trained there once. I don't argue. It's better than flying blind. And right now, anywhere that isn't lit up with muzzle flashes and smoke plumes sounds like a gift. We push on in silence for the next hour, systems running clean, horizon flattening into the warm haze of early morning. The first rays of sun slice across the edge of the Gulf. I haven't seen the ocean since this started. Funny how small the world becomes when all you're doing is flying in circles, trying to outrun something that doesn't need to rest. Malik wakes with a jolt and scrambles to the door, rifle up. I wave him down before he pulls the trigger on shadows. His eyes are wild. Thought I heard something inside the bird, he says. I motion him back to his seat. Nothing here but us. You're dreaming. He doesn't answer, just checks his mag and reslings his M4. Then he moves forward to the cockpit, scanning the gauges like he actually knows what half of them mean. I can tell he doesn't. He's restless, twitchy, the crash adrenaline finally draining from his system, leaving whatever fear he hasn't said out loud. We're all running on habit now. Once that runs out, there's nothing left but instinct, and instincts can lie. We cross into Mississippi airspace just after 0600 hours. The sun is high enough now to reveal details on the ground. We pass over towns I don't recognize, Grady, Shaw, tiny grid dots swallowed by endless fields. Some look untouched, lawns still mowed, cars still parked neat in driveways. But even from this height I can tell something's off. The streets are empty, the houses too still, like everyone just stepped out at once and never came back. Closer to Biloxi, we see our first column. Maybe 50 people walking down a 4-lane highway, all moving in the same direction, in staggered groups, not military formation, no discipline, just loose clusters. From up here, they don't look like the infected. Too steady, too smooth. But then one of them breaks off and begins wandering into the scrub brush like he forgot where he was going. The others don't stop. They just keep walking. We swing wide and descend low over a fenced compound tucked against the tree line. Concrete pad, fuel tanks, low barracks. No lights, no visible movement. But the gates are intact. That's rare. We circle once, slow. I scan the tree line through my optics, then the roof of the main structure. No movement. Still no signals. Devereaux risks a landing. We come down slow, skids kissing concrete without bounce. The moment the engine spools down, I feel the silence like a weight. Malik jumps out with his M4 up, sweeping corners. I follow with my sidearm drawn. The air is humid, thick with pine and fuel fumes. A light breeze tugs at the corner of a tarp that's been stretched across an open stairwell. No wind chimes, no birds, not even the buzz of insects, just silence. We clear the first structure, supply shack by the looks of it. Cots inside, racks half emptied, food stockpiles still sealed, one open case of MREs, 2 sets of gear dumped near the wall, vests, rifles, med kits. The way they're arranged tells me everything. Someone took them off fast, maybe under duress, maybe by force, but no blood, no bodies, just absence. We sweep the next building, the radio room, burned out. Looks like someone shorted the console with a fire extinguisher. No messages left behind. Whatever they knew, they didn't want it getting out. I find a paper log, half burned, scans of recent transmissions. Most are routine supply requests and internal status reports. But one line stands out, written in pencil across the margin. Infection non-airborne, transmits via direct contact. Reanimation confirmed within 6 minutes post-mortem. No higher cognitive function. Movement persists after full exsanguination. Malik reads over my shoulder. So, shoot them in the head? I don't answer. It's not that simple. If this was a biological weapon, and I'm starting to think it wasn't meant to kill quickly. It was meant to spread. We regroup at the pad. No signs of life, but no threats either. Devereaux walks the perimeter, his rifle hanging loose. I can tell he's thinking about ditching the bird and heading out on foot. Maybe find civilians. Maybe link up with anyone still holding command structure. I'm about to ask when the first round cracks through the air. Malik drops, instinctively flattening against the skids. I spin towards the tree line and spot 2 figures running, not infected. These ones are armed. The next burst tears through the supply shack behind us. I see Devereaux raise his M4, fire a 3-round burst, and drop to cover behind a barrel. "Ambush!" he shouts. 5 o'clock. I duck behind the pump station and peek around the edge. 6 targets. Light gear, mix of civilian and tactical clothing. One has a chest rig loaded with stolen army mags. Not infected. Raiders. I swing the M240 on its pintle mount, grip tight, and send a burst into the nearest tree line. The gun chatters like thunder, kicking dust and splinters across the field. The effect is immediate. Screams, shouts, retreating movement. Devereaux pops up and finishes one with a clean shot to the neck. Another tries to flank us left, but Malik drops him with a short controlled burst. It lasts under 3 minutes. When it's over, the bodies lie scattered at the edge of the clearing. We sweep them quick. No IDs, no insignia, just desperation in human form. One of them has a pocket radio tuned to an AM station out of Jackson. I listen for a moment. The host is crying. No news, just crying. We don't talk as we refuel. No victory in surviving people who've already lost everything. I check our systems, confirm our heading, and mount up. The world is turning faster now. The fall is accelerating. Once airborne, the weight settles in again. There's something about being above it all that tricks the brain into thinking it's under control. You scan miles of terrain in a single glance. You don't see the individual stories, just fire lines, shadows, smoke drifting lazily from what used to be towns. The horror is quieter from up here, but that doesn't make it less real. In fact, it makes it worse. There's an emptiness to it that doesn't match what I know is happening on the ground. An entire country tearing itself apart, and from altitude, it looks like nothing more than a foggy morning after a storm. We follow Route 49 up through Mississippi, banking slightly toward Memphis. I watch the map overlay update every few minutes. Every town we pass over has the same signs: burnt gas stations, overturned trucks, entire neighborhoods gone dark. In one stretch near Clarksdale, a rail line cuts straight through the fields, and a freight train has derailed along the curve. Cars twisted and half buried in the soy. From this height I can't tell if it was sabotage or panic, but I can see at least a dozen infected clinging to the wreckage, circling it slowly, like moths around a dying flame. Devereaux doesn't speak. His hands stay loose on the controls, but I catch him glancing at the altimeter more than usual. We're flying lower now, just above power line height. Either he doesn't trust the airspace anymore, or he's trying to avoid whatever detection still exists. The satellite uplink's been gone for over 2 hours. The last ping from SOCOM command came with a data packet marked Tier Black. No encryption key, no message, just coordinates, northern Missouri, somewhere outside Jefferson City. I log it, but don't mention it yet. I don't think Devereaux's ready to believe there's still anyone left to send orders. Malik moves between the doors, watching the treetops pass below. He hasn't said much since Biloxi. I can tell something shifted in him after that ambush. He looks down at his boots more often, rechecks his weapon twice as much. There's a weight behind his eyes that wasn't there before. He's done trying to make sense of it. He's just following momentum now. We all are. As we pass the outskirts of Memphis, the city comes into view, and for the first time since the DMZ, I feel something close to awe. Not in a good way. The skyline's half gone. The FedEx Forum is on fire, and the bridge into downtown has collapsed into the Mississippi River. Whole sections of the interstate are jammed with burned-out vehicles. Smoke rises from multiple quadrants like signal flares, red, orange, black. A helicopter sits nose down in a parking lot, rotor snapped, cockpit glass stained. From this altitude I can see movement in the streets. Not just the infected. People, survivors. Clusters trying to wave us down with pieces of cloth, high-vis jackets, anything they can find. I can't make out the words, but I know what they're saying. Help us. We don't have the room. We don't have the fuel. We don't have the time. But none of that makes it easier to watch. One man chases the bird on foot for nearly 30 seconds before collapsing against a median barrier, arms still raised. Devereaux keeps us moving. I don't argue. North of the city, we spot a National Guard convoy. 4 Humvees and a deuce and a half, moving slow along a service road. The lead vehicle is dragging barbed wire and floodlights. The last one's missing its rear wheels and sparking against the asphalt. They're herding something. A crowd of civilians. Maybe 70 people, corralled like livestock, walking with heads down, some barefoot. Armed soldiers on both sides, rifles low but ready. I don't know if this is evacuation or containment, but I recognize the pattern. Forward movement, tight discipline, no time for compassion. A few minutes later, I get Devereaux's attention. I tap his shoulder and point to a strip of open terrain east of Haiti, Missouri. It looks like a disused crop dusting strip, long enough for a helo. There's no sign of damage. A water tower nearby lists the town's name, Caruthersville. But the place is dead quiet. Still, a few bodies in the open, none moving. I suggest we put down, take a few minutes, recheck systems, get our bearings. He considers it, then nods. We land behind a rusted barn on the edge of the field, engines idling low, doors open. The breeze carries the sharp scent of smoke and something underneath it, decay. I stay by the bird while Malik and Devereaux move out to scout. They keep eyes on each other, never drifting too far. I check our fuel, ammo loadout, inspect the mount on the M240. Everything's fine. Everything should be fine. But the silence has weight here. This isn't just rural quiet. It's the quiet after something breaks. After 10 minutes, I spot Malik jogging back, motioning me forward. I follow, keeping my rifle low but ready. He leads me to a small house with the front door open. Inside, Devereaux's crouched over a radio on a kitchen table, plugged into a car battery and a makeshift antenna strung through a broken window. The signal's faint, but there, AM band, civilian channel. A woman's voice reading off emergency codes, alternating between English and Spanish. Her cadence is mechanical, emotionless. This is a FEMA relay station. Proceed to designated shelter areas. Avoid all contact with exposed individuals. Maintain visual confirmation of life signs. Repeat, maintain visual confirmation of life signs. She's reading from a script. There's no indication the message is live. The room smells like mildew and something older. In the corner is a body, covered with a quilt. Blood pooled beneath. Devereaux doesn't speak. He just turns the volume down until the voice becomes a whisper behind us. We return to the bird, load up. Before we lift off, Malik pulls something from his vest, dog tags. I don't ask where he got them. He tucks them into a side pouch and climbs in. We're all collecting ghosts now. As we rise again, I check the nav. We've got enough fuel to push north and reach the tier black coordinates. It's a long shot, but we need a direction. Somewhere that isn't smoke and ruin. Devereaux nods when I relay the heading, but he doesn't comment. Just adjusts course and locks in. An hour later, the landscape begins to change. Less farmland, more forest. We pass over Mark Twain National Forest, endless green broken only by winding roads and the occasional burned-out ranger tower. Somewhere along the way, we lose radio entirely, just static now, even on previously active bands. We're flying blind. Near the outskirts of Jefferson City, we hit turbulence, low level, like pressure building beneath the atmosphere. The sun's starting to dip, and with it comes a strange glow on the horizon. Not fire, not weather. Something else. A wide, rolling mist spreading from the tree line, crawling over the earth like a living thing. Devereaux circles us down low, slow. We bank across the river and approach the tier black coordinates. There's nothing there, just a clearing. Concrete pads, a few storage containers. One antenna, half collapsed, pointing at the ground like a broken limb, and a small bunker hatch embedded in the center of the lot. We hover for a moment, watching for movement. None. We land. Malik covers the perimeter while I check the hatch. It's sealed with a coded keypad and a biometric lock, military issue. Outdated but functional. I try the general override code we were trained on back at Campbell. It fails. Devereaux tries his. Nothing. Then the hatch clicks open. We exchange a look. I draw my weapon and swing the hatch wide. Inside is darkness. A staircase leading down. A single light flickers somewhere deep inside, reflecting off metal walls. It smells sterile, cold, not like rot. Not yet. I step down first, slow and steady, boots ringing against the steel stairs. Devereaux and Malik follow. The air grows cooler the deeper we go. A soft hum begins to rise, machinery still active. Lights flicker on as we pass, triggered by motion. At the base of the stairs is a heavy door marked Echo 7. No insignia, no agency. Just black paint, peeling slightly along the edges. I press the intercom panel beside the door. It crackles once. Then a voice comes through, male, tired, strained. "Who are you?" "Night Stalker Aircrew, Fort Campbell, Birds Designation Whiskey 2, responding to Tier Black transmission." The speaker went silent for several seconds, long enough for Devereaux to shift uneasily behind me, and for Malik to raise his weapon slightly, not aimed, but ready. Then, with a low mechanical buzz, the door unlatched and slowly cracked open. Hydraulic arms did the rest, hissing as the blast door rolled inward, revealing a narrow passage beyond. It wasn't like a bunker we'd trained in. This one was cold, sterile, almost surgical. The walls were brushed steel, marked only by stenciled codes and overhead bulkhead lights that flickered to life one by one as we stepped inside. A man stood at the far end, maybe late 50s, wearing a rumpled set of army-issue fatigues with the name Kern over the pocket. He wasn't armed. He didn't salute, just stood there, one hand on the door frame, as if he'd been leaning there for hours and only now remembered he had company. His face looked pale, half-drained, but alert. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of workstations, old command-style terminals, large monitors, stacks of crates marked Biocontainment Class 4 and Property of Rare. One monitor still showed a map of the US overlaid with blinking red zones. Most of the country was lit up. "You weren't supposed to get this far," he said. "Neither were they," I replied. He exhaled through his nose, the kind of sound someone makes when they've used up every other option and now have to settle for the least bad one. "Come in, but don't touch anything. Don't speak unless you're spoken to. And for God's sake, don't bleed in here." We followed him deeper into the complex. The lighting stayed low, intentionally muted, casting long shadows along the corridor. Devereaux and I exchanged glances, but didn't ask questions yet. Not until we understood the layout. The deeper we went, the more obvious it became. This wasn't a shelter. It wasn't a command center. It was a vault, a sealed lab, maybe a weapons depot, the kind of place the Pentagon would deny existed even under oath. Every door we passed had keypad locks and bio-readers. The last room we entered was octagonal and cold, filled with air that smelled faintly of ozone and antiseptic. Kern gestured toward a metal bench and sat across from us at a bolted-down table. I'm Major Kern, retired. I used to run a branch of the RAIA, the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research. They kept me here after I blew the whistle on a project that wasn't supposed to exist. He rubbed his eyes. Now I'm the last man alive with a clearance code that still works. And if you made it here, it means the failsafe's already failed. Malik leaned against the wall, weapon lowered but still cradled in his arms. Failsafe? Kern nodded, then stood and keyed a code into the nearest console. The map we saw earlier reappeared, this time zooming in on regions of heavy outbreak. Chicago, Atlanta, San Diego. Even Anchorage was red. But it wasn't the spread that hit me hardest. It was the timestamps. Every zone was marked with an onset time and estimated vector data, all of it within the last 72 hours. It wasn't an accident, Kern said. The infection was triggered intentionally, deployed simultaneously across 6 strategic locations. The vectors weren't bombs. They were couriers, human, volunteers, or maybe prisoners. Doesn't matter. Each one carried a dormant strain of the Z21 pathogen, a modified neurotropic virus with prion behavior. It doesn't die with the host, it rewires them. I didn't say anything, just stared at the map, trying to absorb the scope of it. Malik shook his head. But why? Why would anyone release something like that? Kern gave a bitter smile. To test viability. To study societal collapse in real time. You know how long they've been preparing for this? You ever hear of Project Sable Dawn? He keyed in another command. A folder opened, images, memos, video clips. Most were redacted, but one still frame stood out. A man in a sealed chamber, biting into his own hand as blood pooled at his feet. He wasn't screaming, his face was blank, completely absent of pain or thought. Z21 doesn't cause rage, Kern continued. It doesn't trigger aggression, it causes erosion. The neural pathways decay in a structured sequence. Language centers go first, then voluntary motor control. But the brainstem, autonomic functions, those persist. That's why they don't stop. That's why shooting them anywhere but the head is useless. They don't bleed out because the body doesn't care anymore. The body is just continuing. Devereaux finally spoke. So what's the endgame? There wasn't one. Not for us. This was never about containment. It was about observation. Every major population center has already been seeded. The military's command structure fractured within the first 36 hours. Civilian governance collapsed 10 hours later. You've seen the broadcasts. Looped messages, abandoned convoys, automated directives to nowhere. The system didn't fail. It did exactly what it was designed to do. It stalled. Gave the architects time to vanish behind hardened doors. He sat down again, the fire gone from his voice. You're not supposed to be alive. You weren't in the scenario models. Malik looked like he was ready to walk out. So what now? You lock us in here and wait for the air to turn sour? Kern shook his head. No, I need you for something else. He led us into a separate wing of the complex. This one had a large sealed door labeled Holding Sector 2. The windows were fogged, but through the glass I could make out movement, slow, shuffling. Inside were 3 containment chambers. 2 were empty. One still held a subject, a woman. Military fatigues. No rank. She stood still, not pacing, not scratching, just upright, eyes glazed, hands clasped behind her back like she was waiting to be called into a meeting. She was a field officer stationed at a biotech contractor in Austin, Kern explained. One of the first confirmed to have resisted full neural degradation. She retained some sense of routine, not thought, not memory, but behavior, reflex. I took a step closer, staring through the glass. Her eyes flicked toward me. Just a little, barely a shift. She responds to speech patterns, Kern said. To rank sometimes, to key words. She doesn't speak, but she listens. And the fact that she's still listening means there's a piece of her brain that hasn't shut off yet. That's what they want. Devereaux's voice was low. They? The people who launched this. Whoever's left at the top of the command chain. If they're still alive, they're collecting data. Which means they're watching. Every comms ping, every satellite uplink, every coded fallback route. You followed one of their trails here. Now you're part of the equation. He handed me a black case, cold to the touch. Inside was a reinforced hard drive with biometric locks. Get this to Tower Echo, he said. Not this site. The real Echo, North Dakota. It's the last node in the chain, buried in the Bakken region. Autonomous relay, hardened against EMP, low profile. If there's a signal strong enough to reach the rest of the world, it's there. I stared at the case. Why us? Because I can't go, and no one else is coming. I looked to Devereaux. He nodded once. Malik didn't say anything, but he slung his rifle and stepped back toward the exit corridor. We knew what this meant. Another run, another gamble. But this time, we had more than a bird and 2 belts of ammo. We had purpose. Before we left, Kern pulled me aside. His voice dropped lower than before. You'll hear transmissions that sound official. Ignore them. Most are either AI-generated or hijacked loops meant to pull survivors into dead zones. Don't trust anything on standard channels. Stick to the frequency I wrote on that map. 4.896 MHz. It's encrypted. Old NATO band. If there's anyone legit still alive, they'll be listening. I nodded. What about you? He didn't answer. Just turned and walked back toward the containment chamber, where the woman was still standing, still waiting. We lifted off 10 minutes later. As we climbed, I looked down at the clearing one last time. The lights inside the bunker flickered and faded. Then darkness swallowed it whole. Now we're flying northwest, skirting St. Joseph and crossing into Iowa. Devereaux's hands are steadier. Malik's watching the skies again, eyes sharper. I keep the M240 trained outward, even though we haven't seen air traffic in hours. Somewhere below us, civilization has stopped moving. But the infected haven't. They're still walking, still searching. Not out of rage, not hunger, just motion without memory. We followed Highway 29 up through Iowa as the day dimmed into dusk. Clouds built along the western sky, thick and low, casting long shadows over farmland and industrial corridors. From the air, the world looked like it was holding its breath. No cars on the roads, no smoke rising from chimneys, no signs of life between the silos and grain elevators. Entire towns seemed paused in time, frozen mid-action, like the power had simply been switched off and forgotten. Devereaux kept the bird low and steady, no chatter, no unnecessary maneuvers. At this altitude, any noise might draw attention, but truthfully, we hadn't seen much that could reach us. The infected didn't coordinate. They didn't form packs. They just spread, slow, inexorable. The only times they gathered in numbers were where noise had drawn them. Evac routes, failed safe zones, overrun checkpoints. It was like watching floodwater follow the low ground, indifferent to what stood in the way. We passed over Sioux City just before nightfall. The Missouri River shimmered with oil sheens and floating debris. A wrecked barge had struck one of the bridges, taking out 2 lanes. Along the riverwalk, we spotted fires, maybe a dozen campfires spread out in the open. Survivors. No shelters, no tents. Just bodies hunched in flickering orange halos, eating in silence, rifles within reach. When we dropped to 1,000 feet to sweep once, one of them stood and raised a piece of cardboard marked, "Don't land here." We didn't. Malik watched them fade behind us, silent for a long time. Then he muttered, "Maybe they've got it figured out." "How's that?" I asked, half distracted by the map. No false hope, no plan, just surviving. I didn't argue. There was no right answer anymore. An hour past dark, we put down on a frozen farm field near Oaks, North Dakota. Our fuel was running low, below 30%. We needed to find the relay station soon. The coordinates Kern gave us were still over 100 miles northwest, deep in oil country, beyond anything connected by paved roads. The wind out there cuts through steel, and the weather hadn't been kind since the grid collapsed. Without heaters, guidance towers, or plowed access roads, even the smallest landing might become permanent. We powered down, tucked the bird behind a line of old grain silos, and took turns on watch. Devereaux slept first, Malik next. I stayed up through the coldest part of the night, walking slow patrols around the helicopter. The M240 wasn't ideal for that distance, so I kept the suppressed Sig Sauer in hand and my NVG flipped up. No point burning battery when there was nothing moving. Or so I thought. Just after 0300 hours I spotted it. A figure on the far edge of the property line, maybe 300 meters out. Standing still, half obscured by the rise in the ground. It wasn't moving, not shuffling, just standing. I stayed crouched, waited to see if it drifted away. After 10 minutes it hadn't moved. I checked for thermal signature through the optics. Cold. No heat signature at all. I kept watching another 5 minutes. Still nothing. So I left it alone. By dawn, the figure was gone. No prints, no broken grass, not even a trace. I didn't wake the others. By sunrise, we were airborne again. The terrain shifted fast. Flat farmland giving way to wide, icy fields, dotted with pump jacks and skeletal derricks. The Bakken. Fracking country. The roads below were snowed in, even in early autumn, and most of the vehicles we passed were frozen mid-evacuation. One 18-wheeler had jackknifed across a state route, trailer torn open, its cargo, emergency food rations, scattered across the white. Dozens of footprints led away from the site, heading into the woods. None returned. The coordinates took us to an unmarked clearing 25 miles northwest of Williston. No buildings, no fences, no visible pad or antenna, just a long trench of concrete slabs buried beneath layers of frost and soil. If you didn't know where to look, you'd fly right past it. Devereaux circled once, low, and then dropped us down between two drainage berms. The wind howled as we stepped out, rifles up, scanning. The relay station was underground. A steel hatch set into the earth, disguised with sod and frost, covered in rusted snowmelt. I wiped it clear and found the keypad. Old-style military issue. I keyed in Kern's override. Nothing. Tried again. Same response. A red LED blinked in the corner, then turned green. The lock clicked. "Welcome to Tower Echo," Devereaux muttered. The hatch opened slow, revealing a ladder descending into absolute black. We dropped in, one at a time. The air was stale, dry, but breathable. The tunnel sloped downward into a narrow corridor lined with bundled cables and peeling insulation. Motion sensor lights sparked to life ahead, flickering in a delayed sequence. The whole place was low power, maybe even disconnected from the main grid. At the end of the hall, we found a reinforced steel door marked Command Relay Echo Node A. I keyed in the access code again. This one worked on the first try. The door creaked open. Inside was a broadcast room, bare bones, modular, meant for emergency use only. A single broadcast console sat beneath a reinforced radio mast interface. Two screens still functioned. One displayed a grid of satellite overlays, all offline. The other pulsed with static, waiting for signal input. In the corner of the room sat a body, slumped against the wall, uniformed, long since dead. No weapon, no wound, just stillness. Beside him a short log handwritten in block letters. Initiated cycle 4 signal at 0400 hours. No response, repeated in 3 languages. Still nothing. Maybe we're late. Maybe this is it. I removed the hard drive Kern gave me and opened the primary console panel. Devereaux helped me patch it into the system, while Malik rerouted the antenna interface. It took 10 minutes to boot, another 3 to stabilize the input. The system had a delayed relay, a buffer that could run the broadcast for up to 8 hours on repeat. The first data packet was simple. Field reports, outbreak vectors, timestamps, confirmation of Z21's properties. The second contained decrypted audio. Not logs, not voice memos, confessions, snippets from scientists, military personnel, logistics officers, whistleblowers. All of them anonymous, all of them clearly recorded under duress. One voice, female, spoke of early trials on civilians. Another talked about neural mapping failures and loss of containment in South America, months before the official outbreak. But the last file stopped us cold. It wasn't a confession, it was a warning. If you're hearing this, it means Echo Tower wasn't neutralized. It means someone's trying to send the truth, and it means they'll come for you. We stared at the speaker in silence. Malik finally said, "Who's they?" Devereaux looked at me. "Does it matter?" I started the broadcast. The system clicked on, pulsed once, and began transmitting. The voice I chose to lead with was Kern's, his field note on Z21, recorded on the drive. We layered the data packets behind it, cycling on a 2-hour loop. Then we sealed the tower, resecured the hatch, and returned to the bird. But something had changed. The moment we stepped back into daylight, I felt it. The horizon was darker, the wind stronger, as if the world itself had registered what we'd done. We didn't just survive, we spoke. For the first hour, there was a silence to it, like a breath held across the plains. We kept to altitude, no words between us, just the constant drone of the rotors and the creak of cold steel around us. Devereaux flew north by northwest, skimming just below cloudline, cutting a jagged path along the edge of the old fracking corridor. It felt good to move, even without a plan. We'd done the job. We'd sent the signal. Whatever came next wasn't ours to control. But as the clouds thickened and the light began to dim again toward late afternoon, the silence stopped feeling safe. There's something about North Dakota's sky when the weather turns. The grey stops being atmosphere and starts to feel like weight, something above you, pressing down. By the time we passed Minot, visibility had dropped to under 2 miles, and snow had started coming in horizontally. We couldn't go much farther without burning into reserve fuel. I watched the numbers on the panel tighten. We had maybe 30 minutes of flight left. That was it. We circled west of the city, looking for anywhere suitable to land. All the urban zones were swarmed. Devereaux spotted at least 6 heat signatures on every major road out of town. None of them moving fast, but they were there, clustered in intersections, pressed against buildings, some even standing still in the snow, as if they'd frozen in place mid-stride. We dipped lower over an industrial park, flat roofs, wide lots, and what looked like a semi-intact distribution center. The surrounding fence had collapsed in one corner, but we didn't see movement, just mounds of snow and long-dead vehicles. We dropped in hard and cold. Wind blew sleet sideways across the fuselage as we shut her down and dismounted fast. Devereaux kept his hand on his sidearm as he scanned the perimeter. Malik moved forward into the building, checking door handles, sight lines. I stayed back, locking down our ammo, stripping out the bird's remaining gear. The M240 was down to 60 rounds. I pulled it off its mount and slung it across my back, along with one of the backup radios. The last thing I did before stepping away was run a quick diagnostic on the relay system. The signal was still going out, full strength. Inside the warehouse, we found a secure corner with some warmth. Insulated break room, one working generator humming softly through the floor. No fuel for it, but the room still held heat from earlier. Someone had used it recently. There was food, canned beans, MRE wrappers, a few packs of bottled water stacked in a broken vending machine. There were also bloodstains along the doorframe and drag marks across the tile. But no bodies. Malik posted at the hall. I watched the exterior through a narrow slit in the steel security shutter. Devereaux rested for a while, then sat upright, staring out across the concrete like he was seeing something miles beyond it. "I don't think they care that we sent it," he said finally. I turned towards him. "What do you mean?" "They knew someone would. Eventually. You can't tell 1,000 operators to go dark and expect them all to vanish forever. Someone was going to break protocol. You, me, someone else. They built that into the plan. I didn't respond. He wasn't wrong. They wanted the story to leak, he said, so when they come back, they can rewrite it. I didn't press further. There was a logic to it I didn't like, and we were already beyond the point where disbelief was useful. That night the wind changed direction. At first we heard only the scratching, barely audible, like twigs against sheet metal. But when Malik returned from the hall with his face pale and rifle at the ready, we knew it wasn't the wind. Something had found us. We shut down all light, silenced the generator, locked every internal door. From the roof, I climbed up to the access hatch and scanned the yard with thermal optics. Dozens, maybe more. They weren't charging, just standing, pressed against the building, heads tilted up, silent, like they were waiting for something. They didn't move that night. We didn't either. At dawn, we found the north exit gone, caved in, the fire escape torn down and pulled into the snow. The infected weren't breaking in. They were removing ways out. That was when I knew something had changed in them, something subtle, a pattern. We made the call to stay low, try another uplink. Devereaux and I climbed back into the bird and powered up the emergency relay. The antenna spiked briefly, just long enough to confirm the original broadcast had stopped transmitting. Cut off, no error, no signal loss, just cancelled, manually. That meant someone had received it, and they didn't want it going any further. We tried to restart the loop. The interface rejected the packet, locked out. We ran diagnostics, no errors. The system had simply been overwritten. Nothing we had on Kern's drive would reboot it. That was the first time I saw Devereaux look uncertain. "We're not just being hunted," he said. "We've been flagged." We shut it all down again and pulled back into the warehouse. Malik was gone. The side door we hadn't used was ajar, snow drifting in. No blood, no sign of struggle, just his rifle leaning against the frame, still loaded. We swept the compound twice. Nothing. The infected were still outside, unmoving, still listening. That night, I started hearing things through the floor. Not words, frequencies, short bursts, static in rhythm, like a signal being broadcast underground, too low to detect unless you were inside the building. I tried tracing it, failed. Every time I came close to isolating it, it stopped. We stayed 3 days. The cold deepened. Our food dwindled. The infected remained, encircling the building in silent formation. By the 4th morning, Devereaux was gone too. No forced entry, no damage. Just gone. Like Malik. Like everything else. I should have left then. Fought through. Tried to make the border. Canada, maybe. Someplace colder, emptier, untouched. But I didn't. I stayed. I waited. I turned the generator back on. And I started recording this. Not for rescue, not for command. For whoever hears this and thinks it's just a story. It's not. The outbreak didn't happen. It was made, modeled, deployed. And when the last voices spoke, someone listened, then erased them. The infected are still outside. Sometimes they knock, not with fists, just tapping, like they know I'm close to the end. My name is Staff Sergeant Nathan Cole, 160th SAW. Whiskey 2. We didn't disobey orders. We just told the truth, and that was enough to be erased. If this tape ever makes it out, don't look for survivors. Look for the transmitters. They're still broadcasting, not the emergency alerts, the instructions. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.